Hello and welcome to a Sainsbury's on the outskirts of Oxford. We're here because it's got the cheapest fuel in the area, which makes it the perfect starting point for a budget road trip. Doesn't sound very exciting, but it is because it involves the new Toyota GR86. Now this is a rare beast, not only because it's got a naturally aspirated engine, quite exciting, and a manual gearbox, but because it's a sports car costing less than 30,000 quid. And there aren't many of those around anymore. So to line up against it, we have a Mazda MX-5, a Hyundai i20N, and the short straw, a Caterham 170. So our plan is to do a 3-day road trip for less than 300 quid each.
First things first, getting as much fuel in the cars as possible, zeroing the trips, and setting off gently.
So we filled up with fuel and the plan is to do a loop of Wales. But because we're doing this on the cheap, this first section is an economy run. Now you don't want to watch 140 miles of motorway drudge, but what you do need to see, or you ought to know, is that I have chosen the wrong car because the GR86 is easily the heaviest on fuel. And that's probably going to bite me on the arse a bit later because there's an element of competition involved and there's going to be payback at some stage.
The first part of the route took us from Oxford up the M40 past Birmingham and Shrewsbury, winding up on the Welsh borders at Oswestry. When we refuelled, my fears were confirmed with the Toyota averaging 41 mpg against the Mazda and Hyundai at an impressive 48. The little Caterham may be as familiar with the concept of aerodynamics as it is with waterproofing, but showed the advantage of low power and low weight by topping 56 mpg. That done, we were free to head to our first stop, because what's a road trip without an interlude or two? So welcome to Llangollen Motor Museum, open from the 1st to the 7th of each month, £5 entry.
That's a Citroen, I hadn't even noticed. Anyway, so much to see and do, I can't keep getting distracted. But we need to go and move on basically because we need to drive those cars on some good roads and see what they're like. Right, this is all good, now we're getting into it. Done a motor museum, we've had a bit of lunch at a dodgy cafe, and now we found some great roads. And we've got great cars, cars that belong on these sorts of roads. I often think you drive like supercars on good roads and things, and they feel a bit ostentatious and like they're too big for the scenery, but little cars are great. It's got a good gearbox. This gearbox, when I was going slower, just around town and stuff, it was catching a bit. It was quite difficult to drive smoothly. But now, it's great. And the engine. I mean, what took Toyota so long? We told them 10, 11 years ago that it needed more torque and everything. It's taken them a little while to catch on. Everything feels really cohesively developed. It feels a sort of slightly richer, deeper, ever so slightly more mature driving experience than the old GT86. But the essence of it is still there. It doesn't feel a heavy car at all, even though it is the heaviest of these. And it hasn't got turbo torque, but it's got enough torque that you're not constantly looking for downshifts all the time. And it's above 4,500. That's the sort of bite point at which it really gets itself going. And it's got a delicious chassis on it. There are sort of slight elements of Alpine A110 to it, but I will let you in on a secret. I got very confused because there's a mode button down here on the console, and I was jabbing it and nothing was happening. And it turns out that all that does is change your airflow where you want it around the cabin. The only things you can affect for the driving dynamics are the buttons down here, the traction off, and another one that does track mode and just changes the display a bit and varies the throttle. But oh, it's being used a bit more. It's just got nice turning, even though the roads are really wet. What I've realised is we can now get each other into quite a lot of trouble because we're going to swap cars. And then whoever's driving your car can just drive in second gear on the limiter and use all the fuel, and you'll be left with a bill at the end of it.
Time for coffee and cake by a lake. Although it left a sour taste to be charged £3 for parking, I swapped into the MX-5 and we headed on.
Welsh road trip in October. What were we thinking? I'm so glad this car still exists. It's such an important car in the history of modern sports cars. You know, if this didn't exist, would we ever have had a GT86? Would that whole affordable sports car class ever have got going? And I know there hasn't been nearly enough contenders there since the death of the MGF and the Fiat Barchetta and the Toyota MR2, and they all died like 20 years ago. But Mazda has kept on with it, kept honing it. It's a really good car. I don't have as much confidence in this as I did in the GR86. It feels a narrower car and the steering is slightly, just not as well connected. And the body control, you can feel it. It feels like slightly, just like it's got a little bit, just a tiny bit of topple in those first millimetres of travel, where it just rolls a little fraction faster than you want it to. Although we could have been more budgety with the MX-5 because this is the full house 2 litre, 184 horsepower, rather than the 1.5, which is, I don't know, 3,000 quid less. And that means it is the only car here that is a fraction over 30,000 quid. The GR86 has the sort of the edge of serious driver's car to it that this doesn't. This is a bit more placid and not quite as engaging. Trying to work out whether the MX-5 is still a relevant sports car. I think it is, but I'm not sure about it in this company. Everything else has a more determined sporting bent to it than this. This MX-5, this engine dote's a bit dull. It's good, but there's a bit of slack at the top of the brakes. They don't bite that hard. The gear change, as it has been for 30 or 40 years, however long they've been building this thing, is the highlight. Okay chaps, next destination is Blackrock Sands.
Blackrock Sands in North Wales. One of the few beaches in the UK you can drive on. We had a bit of a play, then the stormy seas, wind and incoming tide drove us to our overnight stay. Not literally, we did the driving bit ourselves. The plan was that whoever spent the most money during the day on fuel, food or anything else would be sleeping in bedroom 4.
So, Greg, how much fuel did your car use?
So I've done the maths on the Caterham. I think I used 11.09 litres of fuel.
That's amazing.
So the motorway trip, you did 11 litres of fuel. 11 litres of fuel.
Yeah.
Wow. And Nick, yours used about 14?
About that, yeah.
14. You were about
13.79 precisely, but I did about 10 miles more than everybody else because I got lost.
So basically, the Hyundai and the MX-5 used about the same amount of fuel.
Same.
And the Toyota that I was in used about 15.5. So I've lost out. But the Toyota did over 40 miles to the gallon getting up here, which wasn't as good as the Caterham, which did 56 to the gallon on the motorway trip up.
That's quite amazing.
Which is pretty good. Now, since then, we've had to pay for coffee, we had to pay for the parking, we had to pay for lunch.
Yeah.
Parking was the same, it was £3 a head each.
I didn't have a cake at lunch, so that knocks at
did.
least £3
Who had a
off
cake?
that.
I only had a can of drink.
This isn't looking good for me, is it?
It's really not looking good for
And
you.
we all had a coffee this afternoon.
So you're not winning on any level, really,
It's
are
me,
you?
am I? I spent the most on fuel, I spent the most on food.
So hang on a minute. If you've lost, which you didn't plan on, but you worked out where this person's going to sleep,
Yes.
where are you sleeping?
not sleep well last night. The tent was even less comfortable than the Caterham, but actually the Caterham isn't uncomfortable. It just feels like it ought to be, and it is until you get into it, get everything straps done up and everything. Once you're in and going, absolutely fine. All you've got to make is tiny movements, but the getting going, the hassle of getting into it. I've kept the roof off at the moment, but I know I'm going to have to put it on because I've seen what's ahead. Weather looks good at the moment here, not ahead it doesn't. It looks ropey. And I'm going to be putting the roof back on for that, and a hat on my head. And as you can tell, I've already dressed for the weather. Okay, so the Caterham is the odd one out in the group. It's the one that you couldn't possibly have as your only car. No matter how much you reckon you can, it's a difficult car to live with every day. It's being fantastically economical. It's really easy once you're in. It's just not an easy car to live with. It's the lack of weatherproofing. And when it's pissing with rain, just it all coming in and filling the footwells and the water sloshing around, and it's not easy. But the experience of driving it, that's why it's so important to have this car along. Because the experience of driving it is second to none here. Just the, this beautiful little gear change. And you proving that you do not need more than 660cc in order to provide decent performance, because this thing goes. It really does. It's not a lot slower than anything else here. And on little roads, everything happens with your wrists. You just move and it's just lovely. And it sounds, it's my favourite thing about this car is the way it sounds, because every time you lift off or chirp or do anything, you get this dump valves and all these sort of whooshing and whirring and all the sort of squash cuckoo noises. It's brilliant.
A morning black through Wales got us to our next destination, leaving the tarmac behind, mostly, to regroup at an old military range.
Ha-ha! Welcome to the Ranges Motorsport Centre.
This looks
It has cost us £100 to rent this place for the day. So that's 25 quid each. We all right with 25 quid on the budget?
Amazing value.
Exactly. So I thought we'd have a little auto solo race. So we'll go and set some cones up down there and have a little race. The jeopardy is the loser buys the winner's lunch.
Okay.
Sounds like a deal?
Yeah, that's fine.
Right, good.
Are there any marshals?
No marshals, no medical support. You're on your own, and don't forget you've got to drive your car around the rest of Wales, and we've got no spare tyres and all the rest of it. Well, it's put quite a lot of spare tyres, but they might not fit the car.
Cones were laid out and everyone got back into the car they were championing. And somehow I was elected to go first.
Right, gentlemen, we have laid out our fantastic FIA approved course. First to go is Mr. Oliver Marriage in the Toyota GR86. He's got to do the lap, go through the slalom, come back here and then park in the pit box. Is that all clear to everybody?
Yes.
I have the official timing thing here. Everybody ready? Okay. Hello Oliver, are you receiving me?
I am, and I'm ready.
So here we go, mate. 3, 2, 1, go! Oh, he's fast away. He's fast away. It's a very tight track, this.
Or down to the bottom corner. Right. Chuck it in here. Then there's the pinch point somewhere here. Breathe in, through we go. God, I don't really want to be driving this fast. I've still got a long way to go in it. Oh, very tight, very tight. Don't collect the corners.
He's in through there. It's through the splashy thing. He's going very slowly. That's terrible. That's awful. Now don't forget, he's got to get all of it in here. He's got to get it all in before I will give him the time. Tell me when he's in, guys. Tell me when he's in.
Wait for it.
Stop. Oh, 54.41 for Mr. Oliver Marriage in the Toyota GR86. Thank you, everyone. Next.
Next up was Nick in the MX-5, who definitely decided that safe and steady beat fast and foolish, and posted a time some 20 seconds adrift. And then it was Greg in the Caterham, the car least suited to a rally test centre. He got himself in the middle of the pack, which left only...
Wook, are you ready in the Hyundai i20N?
I'm ready.
Shall I start it now? 3, 2, 1, go! There's a big bump just when you get down there.
I've got to remember to talk because this is very important to me. There's a little width restrictor there. First.
He's got the angles are a bit wrong. Right, watch for the handbrake, watch the handbrake. Yes, he's right. Hey, that's better, that's good.
Oh, I've completely overcooked it. And I've stalled it. Ah!
Going wrong. Still much promise.
That's terrible, terrible work.
And now.
I can't believe I stalled.
If it hadn't been for your handbrake and stall, I think you might have had that.
I think I would as well, but I couldn't find the start button again, so I just pressed everything and it didn't work.
How was a front-wheel drive car out there? Because obviously the rest of us
I think it was a lot easier than you lot had it because it was just like a little rally car. Perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, the end result is that I've managed to come out on top.
Boo.
And Nick in the Mazda has been last. So
Boo.
you owe me some lunch, I believe. Yeah.
Wow, you're
bloody
a
hell.
really
Is this
cheap
it?
man. You're a really cheap human being.
I'm a cheap date. We better hit the road, hadn't we?
We got more miles to
this
do,
en route.
so
yeah.
let's get out of here.
Several hours of driving south through lovely scenery and improving weather raised our spirits. The cars were none the worse for their rally adventures, the roads were superb, and these were the right cars to enjoy them in. We made it to Tenby in Wales' southwest corner as the sun set. So we parked up, grabbed fish and chips for tea, and soon after went to investigate that night's accommodation. And this time everyone, including me, got to sleep indoors. Because we stayed at a youth hostel. Admittedly, we had to tolerate each other's snoring in the £25 shared rooms, so we were up and out early, and I bagged the Hyundai.
I just can't get over the value for money that this thing represents. It's the cheapest car here. It's £5 less than the Toyota, and it's so well equipped. Toyota's got none of the sort of driver enthusiast modes, if you like that sort of thing. But there's N buttons and there's a rev matching button, and you've got configurable steering and engine modes. It's great if you like that sort of thing, but you don't need it. I'm just pressing the N button and cracking on with it because it's really good, this car. But it does feel, it's just less intimate to drive. The steering wheel's quite big and a bit chunky in your hands, and it sort of makes the car feel bigger than it actually is. And the cabin feels bigger because it is bigger and you sit higher in it. So it lacks the sort of the low down control and sense of occasion, I guess, that the coupes give you. But this isn't bad at all. Sweet turbo engine, really nice gear shift, decent brakes, 25 grand for a full package hot hatch. I think that's really good. Here we are at Landau. Now this is a bit of a budget buster because it's cost us 500 quid to rent for the morning, but we really wanted to see what the GR86 is like on track. We know not to press the mode button because that just affects the heating controls. What we need are these two on the centre console. Track mode, which will engage, and then the other one switches everything off, so track mode just slackens the stability a bit. It's nice having a proper tyres on it because it's much better than the old GT86 in how those break away and deal with the grip you've got. Right, hard on the brakes up here and into the chicane. It's nice, it feels, the best thing about it is the front to rear grip balance and how communicative they are together. Everything that you turn the steering wheel, you feel the rear engaged all the time. And that's just really nice. And it's the best here for that. The Caterham's close, of course. But the Caterham around here, you think it could do with a little more power. But around here, the GR86 especially makes the MX-5 feel the slightly soft-centered thing it is. The body control goes a bit wavery on that MX-5, whereas the GR86 stays consistent all the time. There we go. The thing that challenges it, well, certainly of the similar cars, if you like, the challenge is the hardest, is that Hyundai i20N, because that is a little terrier of a thing. It's a lot of fun. Right, let's turn the traction fully off and see if we can't do a little bit of a session through here. Oh, it's delightful. And through the big one. Wow, 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 wow. Right, I've got to get these tyres home. There's no spares. What a sense of balance it's got though. Oh my word, it's a delight. Right, no, really, 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 tyres, tyres, tyres. Oh my God, it could do that for days. That's what I'm talking about. This, the sense of balance this thing's got is brilliant. So on track, what a little thing this is. But my word, why did it take Toyota so long to sort it? So long, in fact, that they've now said it can only be on sale for 2 years.
And that was the end of our budget road trip. We'd been to beaches and mountains, visited a museum, stayed in a static caravan and youth hostel, eaten chips, curry and cake, and raced around a ratty rally centre. But mainly we'd driven some brilliant roads, in some brilliant cars, and had a brilliant time doing it. Which left just the small matter of how much we'd each spent. All costs had to be factored in, including a 3-day 500-mile share of the car's running costs, the tax, insurance, lease and even tyre wear. Mostly those were pretty even, although there were some standout facts. The Toyota's 199 gram CO2 output made it easily the most expensive to tax, almost 10 times the cost of the Caterham, which also has ridiculously cheap rubber. A replacement tyre is £45. The Caterham was also consistently the lightest on fuel. 400 miles cost us just £71. It never dropped below 40 mpg. At the other end of the scale, the Toyota had glugged £118 worth of petrol. Unsurprisingly, the 170R was our overall value winner. Even with our hotel, food and track costs, well, minus Landau, added in, the trip had cost just £272. The Hyundai just scraped in below the £300 target, the Mazda missed it, but not by as much as the GR86, which came in at £328. These are all genuinely great cars. Even the Mazda with its dull engine and relatively imprecise handling was fun to drive. The others were stellar. The terrier-like Hyundai i20N is not only gritty, but also an utter bargain. The Caterham 170R is every bit as intimate and engaging as the more rip-roaring Caterhams. And the GR86? Well, that's the car it always should have been. Deft, beautifully balanced, more torquey, a rival to cars way out of its price bracket. If we were picking winners, that would be it. But actually the real victor has been the road trip itself, because there's nothing better to do in your own car than get out there with your mates and go exploring. And who knows, if the cost of living crisis bites much deeper, we might all be spending a lot more time in our cars.